I am excited for this. A person from MAGA wants to tell me that I should stop doing this because I'm why they don't want to vote for the Dems. Me, not a Democrat. So Frank in Michigan, you are on the line.
Hi.
I'm excited because I'm going to tell you all the reasons I don't want to vote for the Democrats, and yet I'm still going to.
All right. Can you hear me well?
Sure do.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. So I just want to also thank Eric and Adam. You just sent that guy on a ringer, and rightfully so. That's just nothing a woman should be put through, and I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that guy needed help.
Yep. So what did you want to, I already introduced your point. Do you want to get to the meat and potatoes of your position?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think when you look at media and all that stuff that's all around, my buddies and I, we don't watch all the news. We don't do all that shit. It's too much work. It's too much work for somebody who works 9 to 5 and who, I got my own worries. But then you come on, you hear people, how they talk, what they hear. And it just feels to us that the Democrats are always crying about how bad stuff is, how the Republicans are evil. But then you look at what the Democrats do. They can't put a fucking campaign together for Kamala Harris. They can't do anything that would actually make the people who they should be serving.
It's pronounced Kamala. It's pronounced Kamala.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Frank, so I have a question for you. First of all, I don't know if you heard Jimmy say that he's not even a Democrat. And so I like, that's already interesting to me because I wonder, do you always know who you're listening to? If they're a Democrat, if they're a leftist, what they are? Because it sounds to me like you're admitting that you are voting for political candidates based off of what everyday people that just are online shouting their opinions are saying, instead of figuring out for yourself what the actual politicians that you would end up electing or not electing are actually advocating for and saying. Is that what you're saying? You do? Question. You listen to like...
So I didn't vote, but because of my understanding that I am not educated enough to make a decision like that, I live my life the best I can without worrying about what the politics are, because I truly don't believe that if we...
That's a privilege.
The big impact on the country. Well, absolutely.
Yeah, but
you don't know me, and I don't know you,
went to vote.
I agree with you that I do have that privilege.
Right. That's what I'm pointing out. I didn't have that privilege. I had to vote because it impacts me directly. I also still would have anyways because I see my neighbors, my literal neighbors, and I wanted to, share my voice to speak out for them as well. So it's just really interesting to me how somebody can have this perspective, like where you just don't, I guess you're just admitting that you don't care about other people, which I appreciate the honesty.
No.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Like you don't have time?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying, because the thing I do most is care for other people. And that's what I think is the problem, that when you go on TV or the little amount of exposure that I get is that a lot of the negativity and a lot of the kind of, oh, everything's going to shit, everything's bad, these people on the other side are bad. Now, there's a lot of it that comes from the right.
Yeah,
but
no
the Democrats
kidding. It's almost like it goes louder based on who's in office.
Yeah, but they don't back it up with anything. And look, I really enjoyed what you did with Eric, because you dismantled that man. But I do think that what you were talking about, and I don't understand where you're coming from and what you think the Democrats should actually do to convert people like us, because there's nothing.
I got you, Eric.
There's nothing there.
Frank, I'm happy to offer that to you.
Yeah.
Unironically, I'm not setting you up. I'm happy to tell you what they need to do if you like.
I'd love to
Frank,
hear it.
you're working class in Michigan?
I'm a business owner, yeah.
Okay. And it's, I think our screener marked you as MAGA, but you said you didn't vote. You wouldn't consider yourself then MAGA, I assume, right?
Well, it's hard when you're given a one or two, I don't know what fallacy you call that, but when you're given two answers, you want to get on a talk show too. Yeah, you know what I mean. But
I get it.
I'm in the area. I grew up in West Virginia, so that's how I'll put it to you.
Okay. You abstain from voting, though. You're probably surrounded by a lot of Republicans. Dude, look, You're the person who... So, first of all, you said you don't vote. So whatever criticism you have to make for one side or the other, which the reality is, and it's going to be the single word. I'll get to it. Okay, let me stop going on tangents. It's all going to come down to one word. The reason why you haven't voted is because the right or the Republicans also haven't encouraged you to. They've not gone after the thing that has actually grabbed you. But you're working class, you have a small business. If there was a party that actually supported labor and small businesses in a way that actually made it to your ears, instead of, like you're talking about, these really stupid news mechanisms that aren't interested in that. They're only interested in getting you freaked out about trans people or brown people or people that most people aren't interacting with when it comes to trans people. And most people don't understand their culture if they have the separation from brown people and the benefit to society that these people have. They want to get you scared about those things instead of saying, hey, you know what? You as an individual will benefit if we get you money to use for these things, as in small businesses, and if we get you covered. So the reason why the Democrats can't reach you, I can't speak for the Republicans, is because the Democrats are supposed to be the blue collar worker party. They're supposed to be the party that's going to make sure that you are taken care of, that you're not going to become destitute if you become sick. You're not going to lose everything because some circumstance comes along and you can't contribute the same way. But they don't go after that. They, like the Republicans, are clearly serving billionaires. That's the word that it all comes down to. They don't care about you, Frank. The Dems don't either. The Republicans don't. They care about billionaires. They care about staying in power, and they care about maintaining the success of their corporate donors. So if they would actually start putting out policies, Frank, and while a lot of people freak out, and I think you will find, Frank, that you're probably not going to like to hear it at first either, but if you start digging into the actual policy, how it benefits other countries, and how easy it would be to fund, Frank, the number one thing they should do to try to get you is not just say Medicare for all, but explain Medicare for all. They should explain that your healthcare costs as an individual and as a business owner and the workers and family around you are going to go down, and you will have access to better care in quicker periods of time than than otherwise, unless you are rich, because the only people who get excellent healthcare in this country are rich people. You start there with Medicare for all, you do other things, paid family leave, and this is just the beginning. You go with these things that are for people on the smaller level. You start closing tax loopholes for the rich people, make them actually pay, and you start breaking up the giant companies so they can't put little businesses out of work so easily. You do all those things that the Democrats should be for, and I will enthusiastically vote for them despite still being to the left of them on all of that.
So I completely agree with you on some of those parts, but it seems to me like there's a big disconnect between who you voted for then and what you're saying out here, because I actually think this pendulum that swung with Trump, and I know damn well that businesses that are importing from China are suffering. That, like I said, I live in West Virginia. That's where my business is, even though I'm from Michigan. 60%, as far as I know, I did do some digging before getting on your show, didn't vote out here. West Virginia is the worst, least healthy country that you could, state that you could imagine. I mean, if you look at overdose rates, for example, I'm pretty sure we sell about 1,000 pills per person in West Virginia, right? Like, it is not looking good out here. And that's the problem, that what you just said, that messaging is never gonna relate with people like us because of the fear mongering. People who have it bad want it better, but they fear even worse of their situation getting even worse. When I talk to my buddies, they want to be on the path.
If you don't mind, I want to ask you a question about one of the points you just made, because it'll bring back to my point. Why are people overdosing? And I don't mean like what's the problems they're hitting. Where did their addiction initially come from?
And I love that question, because that's something my buddies and I always get back to. And then we usually start it with either medical prescriptions. That's what happens often, is that somebody gets hurt on the job, they get prescribed opioids, and they never get off of them. So that would be the first one. Second is and we all know poverty and mental health, I think, is a massive thing that the Republicans kind of laugh in the face of. But on the other side, that's what the people around me don't hear. They don't hear that they're being called idiots. They don't that they're not being but the Democrats make them look like outsiders. I think it's bad to look like an idiot, but it's worse to look like you don't belong in the country that you were born in. And that's what the Democrats are doing.
Frank, if I can continue the question then. If you don't mind me taking the question now one level higher, because you're right. it's a combination. The poverty thing is important, but it is that pharmaceutical addiction. So why is that a prevalent issue? And if you don't mind, I'll just answer it. I just told you it comes down to billionaires.
I know what you're going to say, probably.
The pharmaceutical companies are making a killing. So they're not going to overnight fix it. They might do little feel-good things here and there. Even the Democrats, they'll put one rehabilitation rehab clinic per state, or maybe like half of one per county in a state, and put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound and be like, well, we went out there and we fixed it. We're the Democrats, yay. And yet nothing's going to be fixed because they are going to try and maintain the status quo of billionaire profits from the pharmaceutical company.
But that doesn't make a lot of sense for me, because I don't then understand why I ever should vote for them, while Trump did lower prescription prices. Now, Biden did too, as far as I understand, for insulin. But like somebody like Bernie Sanders, for example, he came down to West Virginia not that long ago, as far as I remember. And the Democrats backstab each other. They're just, so I don't understand what a conversation like this on your show really, what should we take?
Frank,
I don't know what we think now.
Frank, I feel you, because I'm as far left as, well, I shouldn't say that. There are people further left than me, but I'm very far left, and the Democrats don't do it for me, and yet I vote for them. Because at the end of the day, what you need to figure out is where on that scale is better, left or right. For the workers, for people who need it, it is to the left. And so the best pitch I have for you is, yes, the Democrats are also on the right, but they're slightly to the left of the Republicans. So they'll at least put Band-Aids on wounds. Even though the wound needs stitched up, at least they'll put a Band-Aid. Whereas the Republicans will go, I'm going to actually take, which Trump has done. He's reduced regulations on pharmaceutical companies already. They basically will bleed the wound. They'll be like, you know what this gaping wound needs? To be opened up and to bleed more. That's the Republicans. Democrats will do things that aren't that helpful, but maybe will save a couple people. They'll put Band-Aids when you need stitches. And so the question is, are we getting closer to a solution? And Democrats will technically get us closer, where Republicans will push us and get us further away and undo all that progress. But there's no doubt we need a radical leftist change in America.
Yeah, well that sounds to me like a fairy tale. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you, I don't want to sound rude, of course.
Evil, buddy. That's what it is. I don't know what you mean.
Well, I want to tell you just real quick about what the rural America, where are you located? I just wanted to ask.
Near Austin, Texas.
Right. Oh, okay. So that's actually amazing. I've been wanting to talk to you about what Austin's looking like. But other than that, in my town that I grew up in, there's a big issue with unemployment. But the unemployment is not fixed by either party. What I'm trying to tell you here is that when Trump gets on TV and looks like the people who vote for him, he won the popular vote. So his policy must have. This isn't that people aren't making smart decisions. The issue is that there's not enough people making the smart decisions. The platform that the Democrats have ran, I just don't understand what you're going to say that's going to change anybody's mind, and what the Democrats can do. Trump's making so much change. It's not great change, but he's making stuff. People can look and say, oh yeah, well, he's bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., and that's what we love. That at least, even with the package of bad,
he's also
not. So you can
nearly
say
all
whatever.
of the manufacturing deals you've described that you're talking about were either in the works under Biden, or now there's like the ones where they had those big ones with like Apple and Meta and everything, and people went and found the proof that company policy and everything, they were all the company emails rather. They were already doing it before Trump got into office. He just goes out and claims credit.
People who work on power lines and some of my buddies, there's no way of telling them that. Right. And that's why Republicans have these great talking points of immigration and whatever, trans people, because those are the things that you really can lash on. But the problem is that, like, wish I could vote
we're
Democrat.
in agreement. Democrats suck at messaging because they are trying to serve two masters, billionaires and labor at the same time. You can't. And Democrats are and so again, my pitch for you is simply, I can do what I just did, as you said with Eric. I can dismantle every argument and show him he doesn't know what he's talking about. But Eric's still going to go vote MAGA. Eric thinks I'm going to take his call. He's literally waiting on hold. He thinks I'm going to bring him back on after waiting 30 minutes, showing he doesn't know policy after policy. He thinks he's going to get back on for more time.
Well, I do think what you did with Eric was a bit No, I understand this is your show, but Eric, I feel like he was very patient with you. But I wanted to tell you one more thing, which is
Frank,
about what
hang
you
on.
just
No,
said.
you
I
don't
think
get to
you're
say
part
that. You
of
don't
this
get to say
message.
that and not give me a chance to respond. I'll let you say your other thing. I
Go
am
ahead.
not remotely patient with people who do not engage. You have engaged directly on almost everything I've asked. You've opined a little bit beyond, and when you've been going on those tangents, I basically said, hang on, let me do this, and you've been fine. This is why you and I can talk, even though we won't agree on everything. Eric never answered a question directly and then started making up policies at the end to make his point and then told me to look it up. So there's a reason why he was met with impatience.
Okay, but with impatience, I do know the policies that Eric probably should have said that I think would have made some of your points a bit weaker. But I wanted to mostly call in to tell you that before I do, well, actually, no, I know you're going to get impatient, so let me talk to you about this.
You don't know that.
I think the problem with well, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make an assumption there, but when it came to gun ownership, right? Everybody here where I'm from owns guns, and
I'm a leftist. I own guns. I'm not against gun ownership.
Right, perfect, amazing. So and yes, at a gun show, you don't need a license in most states, as far as I understand. But that's because guns at gun shows are not supposed to be used for mass shootings. They're fucking. Of course, that's the last thing.
Which guns are supposed to be used for mass shootings?
Right. So the problem isn't the guns. That's why I'm so opposed to gun ownership. The problem
of course, it's also the guns, Frank. But I own an assault rifle.
Finland has a huge gun population. Finland's got more guns than people almost. I mean, what are we?
And do they have and how many AR-15s do you think they got?
But that's because here in Finland they have extremely strict laws surrounding it. So people go to the effort of actually following through. So not only are there background checks, there's mental health checks, there's check-ins, there's training. You have to pass like a technical exam, I'm pretty sure. There's a lot more than what we do in even the most strict states in the US. But what's interesting is that people will go through the effort when they want to own a gun. And by going through the effort, guess what we don't have here? Mass shootings. So,
Frank, I'm with you then. Let's go with the Finnish gun control laws, because that's all I want too. Is I want you to prove you can own a gun the same way you can drive a car. That's it. Like, that's fine by me.
But what kind of gun? I mean, will I be able to go to Walmart?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I don't know where the exact line should be. I suspect my assault rifle probably should be more heavily restricted. But right now, if you're 21 and you aren't a felon, you have access to all of them with no limitation. So let's just say we start there. Let's just say every gun that is commercially available right now maintains commercial availability, but we add tiers of you have to qualify. You need to show at the very least like a learner's permit level of demonstration to get something simple like a pump shotgun or something that's just for hunting or defense or whatever. And then based on what you're getting, and there's a difference between you're going to drive a minivan and you're going to drive a semi truck. Let's not give every fucking Frank. I'd be surprised if you actually disagree with this. You don't think that there should be obvious ways to stop the dumbest and most likely to commit crimes people from having people killers?
Using the complete extreme to make your point here, because I don't think 9 out of 10 people aren't going to do that. Just like 9 out of 10 people aren't going to drive their car into a gas station or a church and blow the thing up. Like,
people aren't going to haul.
But why do you think? Why do you think that we have mass shootings in the US and they're not happening in Finland? Like, gun violence here is not an issue. And yet, like you said, there's tons of guns here.
Okay, I completely see where you're coming from. But when we look at
I live here, so I know it's small.
Also, you invoked Finland earlier, Frank, to make your point. You don't get to back off of it now that it's hurting it.
No. I will. It's not hurting me. Trust me. Finland is one of the safest, and there's reasons for that. If you look at the safest states in America, and they're about the same size, same population, same demographics, and with more policies that are helping the working class, like you said, you'll see the same results. The issue isn't about the guns, right?
And also higher regulations, registry, and safety checks on guns are going to be a part. You can't just say only the aspects that I want to be a part of it are. It's clearly both. Frank,
look, the mass shootings happen in Europe. There was one in Czechia.
Yes, and not nearly as often, Frank. Nobody is saying we're going to get murder down to zero or mass shootings down to zero. I'm
But
not
we
even
should
trying
still
to
Why
try.
focus on it?
Frank, I'm betting by the time the laws that I'm suggesting go into place, you and I probably keep every gun we have, because I doubt you are in that group of people who needs to not have it either. And it sounds like you're probably the kind who likes shooting enough. You'd go and do what it takes to license, what it takes to register, and what it takes to prove you can operate some of the more substantial weapons. If I had my preference, it'd probably go a little more illegal on, again, I probably have an assault rifle that should be illegal, but as long as I'm surrounded by them, I'm going to have one. And it'll just make me feel more manly. But at the end of the day, you can't say that those other laws aren't a part of the solution, because nowhere in Europe is it happening at the same rate. And Finland, who has the strictest policies but still high gun ownership, when you have those two together, it seems to be succeeding in not having a lot of people who believe in a culture where guns solve problems.
And that's completely fair and understandable. I got two questions for you. One is about what's happening, and if gun ownership is actually, I think it could shoot us in the ass, if I'm being honest. If we did pass these, let's say during Biden's administration, and let's say Trump enrolls.
Well, he never wanted. Why would we say that? He didn't support those laws. Why don't we go with a new administration? Because if we say Biden, we're basically, like you were talking about straw manning, we're engaging in a Republican straw man. Biden was not for regulating guns.
Okay, so let's say that there was an administration, even 10, 15 years back, that regulated guns, and we now had it a lot harder to, in a crisis or in anything, get our guns. Now, there is now a new administration like Trump's. I'm not saying it's Trump, because like you said, that could be another shaman moment, I guess, but that enrolls ICE, enrolls the National Guard in our cities, and we got nothing to defend ourselves. Because of this, now it's just a little bit more difficult.
Again, you and I already told you these policies, you and I still have the guns. I'm a socialist. I believe in arming the proletariat. What?
It's happening right now in Portland, where if it happened in, let's say, Austin, Texas, do you think Austin, Texas would be better prepared for a invasion like that of a National Guard or of another army, because there are less strict laws in, let's say,
it's happening
Texas than in Oregon?
Gun ownership is high in Chicago. It's not stopped the National Guard at all. The gun thing isn't it. If we're talking about war with the government, you'd lose every time. They have drones. You're not going to win in a drone to a gunfight. But the whole concept of gun ownership among private citizens is that the massive corporations will know they have less power, and the government still doesn't want that massive outbreak of violence. But we have massive outbreaks of violence, just not between the governments and the citizens. So yes, I think we would be safer. You and I would still have guns. A lot of people would still have guns, but there would be these these other things that we're also talking about. A more finished policy, as you, I think, pointed out, needs to come with other policies. If there's mental health care check-ins, there also needs to be mental health care available, right? There needs to be physical health care available. You need to raise the minimum standard of living. And here in the richest country in the world, we have people who live in third world level poverty. It's fucking crazy.
Well, I mean, look, you're right on that. I live next to 3 trailer parks that are surrounded by massive mansions that I think are complete bullshit. I mean, it's literally the depiction. But with what you just said, though, about the policies, I think it doesn't really matter to people who are around me. I heard a buddy of mine say that he thinks he should be able to buy a drone, right? He should be able to do as much as the government is. And it's just, you live in a country and you need to come to an understanding with that there are just people who are never going to bend on this. And why I called in was to tell you that I think that the message that you're putting out with like being impatient and doing all this, I feel like it's actually hurting whatever change there is to be made. I think what you're doing is similar to what Hassan Piker or all of them are doing, actually scaring people who might vote left away because it's too
wild.
It's too,
because right now the Democrats need to come to us and they don't. And yet, now Zohran Mamdani, an actual, more of a sockdown, but a person with the label socialist, is going to become the mayor of New York City. It's almost certainly he is on. So for you to say that here's what I know. leftism, socialism is more palatable to Americans than it has ever been. Yes, Republicans are still terrified of it, but more people are willing to associate with that label than ever. So you are going to have to show me some pretty specific data to say that I'm not even a Hassan fan, but Hassan has clearly turned more people into leftists and taken down the temperature of people when they hear the word socialist. He has contributed in that way very positively, and I like him for that. Sorry, what's that?
Can I chime in for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, to me, what you're saying sounds similar to the people that will call in when we're discussing religion and will say, like, you're so hard on these people, or, so abrasive. Not that I get told that, but different co-hosts of mine, like, you're scared, like, this is not actually changing anybody's mind. And it's what I touched on earlier. I don't know if you were listening, but I agree with you, actually, in that I think there are some people who will listen to this kind of thing. And I don't think they were ever going to change their mind necessarily because of other prejudices or, beliefs that they need to fit a narrative. And so they hear something and they're like, no, I don't want that. And they won't, and we won't change their mind. And that's a bummer. I hope that there is somebody else that does. I hope there's another method. I hope maybe there's a book they read. Maybe they need a long format, nuanced take. Maybe this is not the format. But I think that and I know that there are people that do have their mind changed this way. Just getting to hear some things and hear how ridiculous some of the arguments are sometimes has a big impact. But I agree with you. I think you're right. I think some people aren't going to because they maybe never were going to. But I don't think that discredits what we're doing, because there's also, for every person that isn't having their mind changed, there's somebody that is. And so to me, it's kind of unless you actually have data to support that, it's just an anecdotal, like, hey, this wouldn't work for me and this doesn't make me change my mind, so therefore I think it's hurting everything. And then we could just say the same about, Trump. We could say that all of these kids that are in these group chats calling themselves Nazis and all this stuff are just hurting the movement. Well, he'd won the presidency. So did it really hurt it? Apparently not. Like, there's ridiculousness on all sides. There's intense conversations. There's intense conversations across the board. And if other people are having intense conversations and pointing out what they think is ridiculous in an argument, then I think anybody should be able to do that. And whether something is effective for a particular person or not is up to that particular person.
Yeah, Frank, I know you want to get in, but I've got a little bit I want to add to that here too, Frank. If you're thinking that the goal is for people to call in and for us to change their minds, while that is nice when it happens, it would be a silly goal to take on, Frank. I think if you'll find any position that you have that is a strong position and you start a show where you're inviting the people who completely oppose it to call you, I think you'll find you have a lower success rate just by the nature of the show. But if 90% of your audience agree with you, but they aren't necessarily as good as articulating things as you are, but they're listening to the way you articulate it and you are making better points, you are modeling better ways to actually respond to the dumbest shit people say, you are now arming people who are going to, it's basically a cascading effect. I give a fuck about Eric who called earlier. What I care about is the next time one of the people, and it's going to be thousands of people, hears universal background checks already is a law, they witnessed on this show how easy it is to make someone look dumb when they say that. You don't have to dunk on them like that. You can, and we use different approaches depending on the tone of the caller that we're on with. But it is absolutely about arming people with the actual information. And because our skill is articulating things, people have the same beliefs as us. I don't think that, obviously every audience will have a small audience, but I don't think the audience is waiting for me to tell them what to believe. They know they feel a certain way about the abortion issue, but they aren't good at articulating what their actual position is. We are, and we arm people with a better way of articulating it.
Well, so I agree with you on that point, but I do think, like, I don't know, the air conversation is why I called in, because it didn't feel articulated. It felt more like a scream match where you didn't let anybody else get a word in. And I know that maybe was because Eric was frustrating, but he's going to probably come back with some policies.
Is this your first day on this channel, Eric? Or Frank, is this your first day with this channel? Yeah, so you based on one call and how one went, you made a whole judgment. We literally have hundreds of calls. You can go start watching clips. Some of them go that way. And then some of them go where the person and we completely disagree. And the call ends with like, well, this was a pleasant conversation. I think you're nuts, but where do we go from here?
What do you think has more power in the voters' mind? What do you think has more power? What kind of voter is going to do all that digging? What kind of person who actually has a job is going to go into?
I challenge you to invent the platform that you don't think we're meeting the moment with. Because as you're sitting here, you are trying to backseat debate, Frank. If you can do it better, go do it better. I don't think you can. But by the way, if you start doing it better, I'll end up hiring you. I hire people who, this is what my company is hiring debaters.
But Frank, what I was going to say is it sounds like you're actually passionate about a lot of these topics that you do care. Sorry, I take back what that wasn't my actual assumption, but I was letting you know how it sounded to me in the beginning of the call when it said it sounds like you don't care about people. Sounds like you do care about people. And I think maybe this is not the platform, probably, but maybe there's another way that you might actually want to get more involved. I know you said you don't have a lot of time and you don't have time to watch the news and all of that. But maybe there will be something that inspires you to find. I'm talking about if you care about people, like you're saying, and you care enough to tell us that you don't think we're doing a good job. Like maybe there's something you could do a good job at that impacts people positively. I'm not saying about the Democrats. We're not Democrats. So again, that's a weird thing to keep coming back to. But if there's something that you see that you want to advocate for U.S. citizens, then do it. I think that's great, and especially if you think you have a good way to do it or a good way to engage in these conversations. I think we need more of that. I want more of that. I want people that do it differently than us. I want people to come join us in doing it. I want people to do it better than us. I think it's important to have these conversations. I think it's important to be educated on these topics, and I think it's important to help educate other people on it. So I think it's great. I was trying to give you a compliment and say like you should get more involved, but somehow that, I guess, it wasn't received. But
no, you're
anyways.
And I appreciate that. But what I don't understand about this, and I really, truly appreciate what you just said, but why should that be on me? People, first of all, don't care enough about this house to educate themselves. That's why Trump works so well for me and my buddies.
But you cared enough to call us to tell us that you don't think.
Right. He doesn't work for you. He just works for. That's not working for you.
I don't understand.
He works for the careless.
Yeah, but
for my buddies who like to work on the power lines, go home, grab a beer, and chill out. I'm not like that, but that's why I don't vote, because there's no good other alternative, but also there's just nothing that works for the people.
There are better alternatives, and if you would just put in the amount of effort into researching as you did to making this call, I don't think it'd be that hard. Like when you're talking about the value of this call and conversations like this, we are going to wrap it up because we're a half hour in, but when you're talking about the value of calls like this in a show like this, regardless of what point you're wanting to make now at the end, if you think back on this conversation, you've admitted that you more align with socialist policies and you don't even necessarily know that. And yet you are sticking to MAGA, which is the opposite of socialism. They are absolutely making billionaires more powerful and wealthier. And so your friends who are working on the power lines are in more economic danger than they were before. And so
I see that.
Yes, I agree
see that.
Their messaging needs to change. Yeah. If I ever run for office, which is very unlikely, I will not be using their messaging strategy. And I will encourage any leftists who will give us the time of day to run that wants to come on here. I will encourage them not to resort to Democratic messaging policy. But if you're going to call and say they suck because they're not articulating their differences, but you guys suck because when you do it, you're too loud. Brother, I don't know what to give you, Frank. I think you just mostly just want to get through the day and not think about politics.
I really appreciate you giving me the time. I just wanted to close myself off, and I really respect all the time you gave me with these two things. I'm not mad at you for yelling at people. I think what you did was well deserved. But when you talk about people like Tom Piker, I'm not your dad, but no, it's that kind of idea.
What's the worst thing about Hassan as a political position? If you're going to bring him up again, what's his worst political position?
I think his worst political position is most likely his actual strength behind Palestine and Israel, but that's not something that I find myself. What I think is the most political one for me would probably be his actual demeanor. And I know that you asked for a political
That's
one.
just tone
I
policing,
think,
man. I don't need you to like Hassan. Again, I don't like Hassan, and it's probably for similar reasons to you. I think, I'm probably a little insecure that I imagine every girl I've ever dated probably wants to fuck him. That sucks because he's a very attractive, very masculine man, and I like to present masculinely, but I'll never, so I'll admit there's probably some emasculation there happening, but otherwise, there's a certain arrogance to his demeanor. I don't think he's that bad, but whatever. People get upset. But if it's not actual policy that bothers you, then
sometimes
I don't.
Policy isn't the most important thing because otherwise Trump would have lost 100 times. But when fucking Fox News picks up Hassan, shows it to not what he gets 100,000 views, but to their millions, that creates way more voters for Trump than Hassan ever did for the left.
I totally disagree. Hassan has an audience of millions, and the nice thing is that he's specifically getting young people. The bad thing about Hassan's audience, if you go to the subreddit, is there's a subset of it that is extremely cult-like, and they're really frustrating and can be absolutely like Puritan, leftist puritanical. Like you have to be perfectly in every single way otherwise. And that stuff is annoying. But as far as when you say policy isn't the most important thing, well, it is the most important thing to a lot of his fan base. And I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with if you go to Fox News doesn't really create voters. It might incentivize people who might have stayed home, but they were already on the Fox News side. At best, you could say that.
Scared and not vote for the leftist. That's what I'm saying. It locks them in a cage. And you asked about
Fox News does that to the people who tell the truth as well. You just brought up Bernie Sanders going to West Virginia. Go watch that whole video of him. It was literally person after person being like, "Holy shit! What Fox News told me about you is not what you are like."
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad you saw it. It's literally like person after person. So Fox News, it doesn't matter if you actually do present good because they basically said, I never actually saw you. I saw what Fox News said about you or how they clipped you down. Okay. So Hassan Piker, you and I could both love him. It wouldn't change what Fox News is doing.
That's the absolute reason I called in because that's where my frustration comes. I don't care about the politics, but when people don't have time, they see 1 hour, they see one video of yours talking to Eric or somebody, it gives them a bad taste and they go to bed. And when you talk about policies that actually benefit me, that the Republicans are doing, I have a couple. I'm not saying they're better, but I do think they're better than what the left did. For example, I'm an American-made business through and through. So with this all China tariff, that's actually benefiting me a lot. And because I don't get anything from China, people love it, and I make more money.
First of all, you're basically doing what Promise said earlier. You're saying as long as you're doing better, it doesn't matter how everybody else is doing. You're kind of going back to that, but it actually isn't benefiting you because if other businesses around you that you do rely on and the economy around you is getting worse, people's buying power is getting less, every business suffers, whether you directly buy from China as well. I don't directly buy from China. My company is still hurt by the tariffs despite the fact that we don't buy directly from China. Every company is. I mean, now you might see yourself for a moment doing better, and it's going to be at the cost of, again, this is what Promise's position was. You are saying, as long as you're doing better, it doesn't matter how many businesses are closing. And at a certain point, you should care about that.
I think that's the problem with a lot of people, though. I think most of the country clearly has my same opinion. It's not going to be easy to change because I care about myself as more than I care about other people. That's it. And that's why Trump wins.
Let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you my last thoughts and then I'll give you 30 seconds for yours. You're sitting here basically mostly complaining about messaging. You agree that the leftist position is the better position and you want the leftists to actually get those messages out. Maybe people would vote for them if they actually were trying to improve things for workers, weren't trying to serve the billionaires. So at the end of the day, right now, you think those messages exist among some people, but the messaging itself is terrible. But Donald Trump is the president. So being nice is not a thing you can defend, is the way to become president. Your final thoughts, if you keep them to about 30 seconds, and then we'll let it go.
I'll try. I totally agree with you that niceness isn't the way to go. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the left is fucking weak. I'm saying that when it comes to messaging, when it comes to policy, it's incredibly weak. And some podcasting like this just, to me, doesn't, I think, convey it to the regular viewers. I wanted to ask you what
I'm not
people like that should
Right,
do,
what-
how I can. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, you can hang up on me. I'm good.
No, I'm not going to hang up on you. I was letting you finish. I was mostly agreeing with a lot of what you were saying. If that was distracting, I apologize.
Yeah, so the last part is, no, you're good. I just wanted to get one last part is that people like Eric and Adam who just, and myself and my friends, there's no way that I can imagine that somebody like the left can get through to us. Mamdani is in the most liberal city in the world, and he barely wins against Cuomo. Well, he won by a bunch of points, but that's what I'm trying to figure out is what can the Democrats and you guys do, because that's not my job. You are in this industry as a political commentator. What could you do to get to people who just are careless about themselves, lazy and busy with work and with their life and overdosing? What can you do to them?
Frank, I think we modeled it on this call. I think my answer to you is what we did on this call, because I got you to acknowledge. So now you're right. The messaging has to improve. But if we can get that message to you from actual policy people of the things you agreed to would be more important, I think that's the way.
I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Frank.